This, yo, so Bryson Tiller, just last night, he dropped a brand new project out of nowhere. Project Anniversary. It's like been a long ass minute since he's dropped anything, and I'm like, yo, I listened to it, so it's okay. Yeah, so I made this beat earlier, and I'm like, why don't I just show you how I made it? So let's get into it. So to start out, I'm just gonna play it out. So editor, you know what to do.
Hey yo, TYQUIL.
Alright, so to start this beat out, when I was first making this is in the key of C sharp minor. I started out with this chord pattern right here, and I'll play this part out. This is just a Rhodes out of Analog Lab. Very like R&B chords, and they descend down. And it comes back up. Descending. It's very, not sad, but like, I mean, it's kind of sad. I have this going to here, to my mixer, where I have some extra reverb on it. So without any effects, you have this. This is what it sounds like without anything on it. And then I decided to add in the reverb to make it more of a, like a pad on top of this filter, which is a low pass. So when I add this, and then I just EQ'd out some of the lows. But this isn't in the intro. In the intro I have this, which is the same exact chords as the Rhodes, but it is a pad from Omnisphere, which sounds like this. It just follows along the same exact chords. But to add a little bit of accent to it, to give it like this ambient effect, I added this key also out of Omnisphere. This is a preset I used a lot. It's called Oldie. And it almost sounds like some sort of like bell, or like it reminds me of like birds. That together with this. Now, once we move over to here, this is what is most prominent throughout the entire beat itself. It's this little like arcade loop that I found out of vintage synthtastic. But it's basically just this synth that just arps over and over again. And this is something that you'll hear a lot in Bryson Tiller's music. Now, effects that I added on this, because without anything, this is how it sounds. Like, it's not bad, but I wanted to give it more of a retro vintage sound, because a lot of Bryson's music is sampled. So I wanted to make it sound like it's a sample. I mean, it is a sample technically, because it's from arcade, but the actual melodic components, like the entire thing, I wanted to sound like it came from one sample. So I added fab filter, so I took out a bunch of that low end gross beat, so I added a gate onto it just to speed it up a little bit because it felt too stagnant. Flanger, which is used also a lot on Bryson's music. Some reverb to give it some space in the stereo field, and then of course RZ20 VHS, which gives it that full vinyl effect, that full sample. Now totaled in with the pad and the key. You already have a good start to a sample, or at least a Bryson Tiller sample just from this. Now, coupled in with this during this intro, I have this right here. This is the reverse note of from this Omnisphere bass, and I wanted it as a transition into, or a transition leading up into the beginning of this bass, so it just adds a totally different effect. It's more like ear catching. I don't need my tag to play. But these bass notes, they don't exactly follow the root. It follows in such a way that it gives it some emotion. So when I play this with these chords from before, because it doesn't follow the exact bass notes or the root notes of these chords. Now, really tucked in the background, I have this arcade, of course, because it's arcade, but offline mode. Oh, and I got internet right now. Give it this, like, as you see how many effects I have lined up, but without anything. That's how it sounds. Now in arcade, to actually slow it down, because this felt way too like not hip, but like dance, sort of like some like EDM vibe to it. So I took it and I slowed it down half on here, and I did that for each note, so then it would make it sound more like an old R&B sample, in which I added RVox. I don't know why I added RVox, to be honest, but I added Fab Filter. I cut out some of the lows, a bunch of the highs, a big shelf on it just to cut out a bunch of these. I added some more reverb to really get it like sitting in the stereo field. Flanger, got a low pass filter so it really sits in the background, because I don't want it too prominent. I just want it like whenever there's a break on any of the chords or at the end, it just pops out, so you know it's there, but I don't want it to be like the main thing. I want that synth to be taking over the entire beat. Now I have RC20 to have it fit in with everything else, that retro feel. And then gross beat, I have another gate in which I half timed it again a little bit, which gives it this cool like vinyl spinning effect. And then a fruity filter, I have this one called Retro Sound. Without it, it makes it sound like it's coming through like a telephone, sort of like old speakers. So I added in with these chords, this synth, and this bass. Which leads into the drums, but I'm not going to get to that yet, because I want to show the outro. The outro on a lot of like Bryson's music will it'll just end with straight piano, or like some piano will come in. So I replaced the Rhodes that I had and I swapped it out with a piano. That's not the piano. It's essentially the same exact chords. I just added a top melody onto it, but then with everything. And then that's what I use for an outro. Now, if we move on to the drums are our usual like R&B, sort of like trap soul vibe. Now specifically for this, I decided to use a lot of, besides the 808, most of it is all from old like Johnny Giuliano kits, because a lot of them have these R&B aspects, and a lot of producers that produce for Bryson Tiller, they use a lot of Johnny Giuliano sounds. So I decided why not to use it, and you know, you can see from the names, obviously they're like pretty much where these sounds or where you've heard these sounds before. So this hi-hat, it's a very simple hi-hat. Now to give it a bounce, on every other hi-hat for the 8th note, it just lowers the velocity just to give it a different bounce. Now for the kick, so for the snares, I have these two separate snares. They hit at different times just to give it a different effect, different variation. And then when it comes to the end of, when it comes to these 4 bars over here, or the end of the 8 bars, they both hit at the same time. And now I have this sound right here. I have a open hat, and then it gets replaced with a stutter. Some more R&B sort of sound to it. And then right here again, I use this one reverse as a transition into this next section. So then when you add everything into it together, and it also worked as a good transition going into the 808. Now if we come down here and we look at the 808, so I have the 808 following the chords. Now these 808s right here, in order for it to give it that stutter effect where it completely just cuts off and it doesn't ring out, I have the attack down, delay, decay down, sustain, release, but I have the hold all the way up, so then when you play a note, it immediately stops when you let off. So then you could sort of do these like stutters, like right here. It just gives it a whole different bounce too. So then we add in everything together for the 808. So we come over here now to the last little section that I added. It's so minimal, but it's there. I played a guitar out. Now it's really hard to hear amongst everything with all the drums. I mean, it's easier to hear when I have it like piled in with the sample. But how I got it sounding like that was, so if I come here to the guitar, I have RC20, of course, give it the vinyl feel. I want it to sound like a sample. I cut out a bunch of the lows, and I also cut out a little bit of the high end because I didn't want the transient, so I didn't want the pluck really sticking out. I just wanted the tone. Come here, I have a flanger added too, because pretty much everything that I have on here melodic wise has a flanger on it, just to give it some continuity, and added reverb to give it some space into the stereo field. And then gross beat, I actually half timed it. So originally it sounds like this, but I didn't want it too prominent, so I half timed it because I just wanted it as a little texture in the background. So then piled in with all the drums, you get so that's pretty much it for this video. So I want to thank y'all for watching, and let me know what you guys thought of Bryson's project, because I thought it was really good. It's glad to see that he came back and he's gonna maybe start making music again. Let me know in the comments if you want to see some more like me making stuff off of recent projects. Like I could also do something off of 21 Savage project, or like whatever else you want to see. Hit the subscribe button, turn the post notifications on. Let's run it up, dapping y'all up. Alright, so thank you for watching. Peace.